Hello homeschoolers, I wanted to do a quick check-in. It's been a week since I started my schedule. As far as my week went, it was great. Kids didn't complain about doing minimal schoolwork, which is a good sign that as I add things in gradually, they'll do good with it. The schedule itself took the focus off of electronics a little bit, not as much as I would have liked, but some. And I'm working out myself, which is fantastic. It's created more family time. We're getting up and going to bed and creating good habits like you would normally when school starts. But of course the main thing is that it doesn't have to be perfect. We're easing into a schedule because summer was very funky and long for these kids, especially being in the house most of the time. So this week, assuming it'll go a little bit better, we'll get a little bit more on track, and that way as I add a stricter schedule a little later on, it'll be a little easier. So here in a moment, I'm going to go over documentation that you might need, how to figure out what your state requires for homeschooling, and give you some ideas on some things to look up for it. And I'll show you my planners and kind of how I'm doing documentation for now. It'll get a little stricter later on. Again, my biggest thing is easing into it. So just a moment. Okay, so let's start with some documentation. I've already kind of showed you this, but I'll go into just a little bit more depth, but not much because it's pretty simple. I picked some random weeks in July and some names and some random assignments just to give you an idea. So this is what I do. If I have 3 kids, I want to make sure they work out and read, so I check it off as they do it. Then I might write what their elective was. Eventually we'll write more here, but that's about all I needed at this time. And then my calendar, what I wanted to show you here, this is kind of what my September looks like. I know it says July, but I made sure to put in where I don't have a school day. This is level 2, level 2.5, which we'll talk about next week, to see what is different with there, and you can kind of get an idea from the calendar. But it's definitely a good idea to get an idea, especially if you need certain days off, because you get to make your own schedule with this. Here's one of my kids. Very simple one. I gave him his 3 things that he needed to complete, and then sometimes he would write his assignment down, sometimes I would. So he did 3 songs on YouTube. That was his workout. You can write the book here. Like I said, there's other pages, I think, right there that you could maybe write the books he's reading, that kind of thing. My daughter's a little different. We kind of wrote down what times she did. So she did yoga with me, then she went and worked out on her own, and that kind of thing. However you want. Over here I wrote the book that she was reading, and then what she did for her elective, that kind of thing. So just enough that you see what you're doing. That way if you do need attendance and you do need hours, you can guesstimate what your hourage is each day, and this calendar is important so you know how many days you're actually, quote, going to school. And one more thing before we get into standards and curriculum. This is a very good idea to have something like this on days that, or excuse me, not days, but for children that are young, especially like kindergarten age. I got this one off Marketplace, hence why we're missing the 3. That's why it says 24th, even though today's 23rd. This one has a bunch of different magnets on the back. I do this every day with her so that she learns about things that she would normally be learning about in kindergarten. You can make one of these. You can get cheap ones at Dollar General, but I definitely suggest having some sort of calendar if you do have a small child, so that they can start to learn these simple things that you may not be thinking about as you do your schooling. Okay, I have a lot of information here, so bear with me. I have it all kind of sectioned. The first thing I want to do is, from the last video I posted, I had some updates and tips throughout the week. So what I did is I just attached them to that first page. So if you go back and check that very first view that I did, you can click on it on the last screen. It'll give you options to go check out the updates and the tips. So I want to go ahead and give them to you right here. The last week tips were: don't stress if it isn't perfect, and let the kids help with checkoffs, documentation, and their planners, a minimal amount so that they can start doing some of the work on them themselves. Stay tuned for next week's tips. I'll add them to the end of this video as well and update them in my Facebook, which is my next point. My contact info. Find my Facebook page. It'll be me with sunglasses on again. That's kind of just how I started. Once you find me as a friend, I will invite you to my Homeschool 101 page, or once you add me, sorry. Feel free to message me I also have Twitter and Instagram. They're new, so there's not much on there. I'll post pictures, for instance, of the schedule. I have a picture posted of the schedule. I'll have pictures posted of this amount of information I'm giving today. And updated links. All this Facebook and Twitter, Instagram accounts, they only deal with homeschool stuff, so you don't have to worry about anything else flooding your Facebook. Okay, so let's start with schedule changes or issues. If you've started your schedule, I would say don't change anything unless it's a big issue. For instance, we cannot have dinner at this time, they're too hungry, whatever the case may be. If you need to make a schedule change for something like that, do so. Otherwise, try to keep it the same. If you miss something, just pick it up the next day. Not a big deal at all. Instead of changing the schedule, add expectations for any difficulties. For instance, one of my biggest issues is my kids are trying to use all of their free time for electronics. So I set phone limits on their phones. I also set downtime where they can't get on it at all. Sometimes I'll have a kid come and say, hey, my time's up. And I'm like, well, it's too bad. So those are some things that I did to try to help that. Also, you can set downtime with TVs. No TV after this time if that's helpful. If you're having an issue that you can't think of a solution, just comment below. I'll try to help you come up with a solution, or send me a message if you need to. But we'll try to come up with a solution or expectation, or if you need to, a schedule change. Okay. Now, if you think we're moving too slow, this would mainly be for people who have kids around them that are already going to school. It's fine. We're going to get a stricter schedule later on. This is just our way to ease into it. Right now, the main concerns are preparing the kids for a stricter schedule, because even though they could go to school right now with no problem and handle the structure, it's so different at home. So this is going to create those good habits and structure to help for that transition. Also, this is your time to learn how to document and prepare appropriate curriculum under a less stressful environment. The fact that it's practically hands-free gives you time to prepare, because that's not something you've had to do in the future, especially if you waited till last minute to decide to homeschool like we did. So now you have time to prepare yourself for more of a full-time teacher role later on. What's nice about this is we have individualized teaching strategies. For instance, I'll have a kid focus on one kid one day, another kid another day. I might give a kid a day off where I can focus on two kids. You're able to individualize it so they get a more focused learning. You can take breaks as needed. If you're going to go on a trip outside of normal trip times, you can create that schedule, and you can create a learning style that's most beneficial for your child. All right, research. Now this is what we need to worry about. The things you need to find out right away are what documentation you have to keep, what are the attendance policies for your state, who needs to be notified or if anybody does, and is there testing required. For instance, when I started looking at my states that we're moving to, I do have to keep documentation. I have not seen anything on attendance policies yet, which is why I'm just keeping simple attendance at the moment. I do have to notify the schools though, so once we move, that's going to be one of the first things I do. And I do know there's testing required, but I don't have to worry about it at this moment. Some other things I've started to look up are the standards that I need to teach for my state, and there's also some helpful forms for notification purposes, documentation, etc. So you want to look up those things as well. I bookmarked some websites to go back to, so when I do start developing my curriculum, I can find those standards right away, and I'll show you those momentarily. Here's some keywords. Your state, homeschool laws or requirements, standards and curriculum are words that you want to use, and how to homeschool is something you could type in. I have a web page that I think is helpful. I'll show you that in a moment. And actually, I will show you that now before we do the homework assignment. So I found this web page. I just wrote Florida homeschool laws or requirements. I don't remember which, but it looks like I did laws up at the top. And as all the states, you can see how some are very laxed. I'm moving from a state that has no notice requirement to a state that has moderate regulation. So there is a big difference. Up at the top, where you can see where it says Florida and it says select a different location, you can scroll down and pick a different state that you want to look at, and then you can do view complete details. I'll click on it just to show you what pops up. Up here it says how to comply, and then stuff about aging, and there's a bunch of different things to look at. I'm not going to show you all of them because you might not be looking at those. But I also found the standards here. I found this page, so I bookmarked it. It tells me all the standards I need. If I go to mathematics, it has every grade level. So I know what standards they're wanting me to teach at my children's specific grade level. So those are some good web pages. Alright, so let's go back to your homework assignment. First, comment below something good about your schedule. How it helps your routine, something nice that you did that you think would help someone else. You can also comment or message about any issues to help me come up with a solution, or together we can work to come up with a solution. Find my Facebook page for a better connection. Also, you want to start documenting any schooling that is happening, even if it's small. You saw what kind of document I was doing, enough that I have attendance, enough that I have the amount of hours my kids are schooling. The most important thing is number 4, look at your state requirements, bookmark helpful websites, and take care of any notifications if those are necessary. And of course, ask for help if needed. The last bit of information is I'll kind of give you a tidbit on next week. You saw on my calendar, you can see what level 2 and 2.5 were. So next week, that's what we're going to focus on. I'll tell you how we're going to add a couple of changes to our schedule, dig in a little deeper with schooling. Okay, so that's all I needed to tell you. That is a lot of information. I will have pictures posted on my Facebook page, so if you're able to find me and friend me, I will add you to that page right away. And subscribe if you like these homeschool tips. I'll keep posting them every week. Hopefully they're helpful to you, and we'll do this together. Bye.